Good morning. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ecclesia Clay Wesley, and I will be your moderator for today. Again, this is the Women of Color Beyond Belief Conference, and this is secular organizing. We have here Miss Tina Marshall, and we also have someone kicking us off via Zoom, and their name is Miss, and excuse me if I'm murdering this, Mashariki Lawson Cook. Hopefully I didn't butcher that. So those will be our speakers today that will be speaking on secular organizing. Would you like also an introduction as well, Ms. Tina?
Can y'all hear me? Okay. Again, I'm Tina Marshall, and I am the lead organizer with Black Nonbelievers of Charlotte. I also am very organized in different groups in and around Charlotte and in and around the state of North Carolina. And that includes Charlotte for Black Futures, and I'm the president of the Senior Democrats of North Carolina. I don't know if they realize they elected an atheist, but here we are. I'm also involved with abolition work around the state, as well as reproductive justice in Charlotte.
Awesome. We are waiting for our other speaker to attend. So as we are getting ready to get started, I will go ahead and start with the questions for Ms. Tina. First question is, organizing for women of color is often more challenging. Why is this true and how?
I think organizing in general is just, it's very difficult, whether it's the PTA or Black Nonbelievers. Organizing work is very, very difficult. It starts to wane, and where we would have maybe around 25 members show up on average. Now, sometimes it's down to 3, or as it was last month for me, it was 1, me, myself, and I. It's just difficult. How is it difficult? It's just, especially with a group like Black Nonbelievers, you have an age range that, where you have college folks all the way up to, we did have one member that was older than me, somebody in their 70s. We all like to do different things. And, you ask for suggestions, or everybody has a suggestion, but then they don't show up. Or everybody has a suggestion, but they don't want to put the work into it. So really, I think for me, you have to have you have to be ready to sacrifice a little bit. Some people say, no, that's not true. Yeah, you do. You sacrifice. The night before any meeting, I'm usually tossing and turning and wondering. I go back to my 8-year-old self thinking, I'm throwing a party tomorrow. Is anybody going to show up? And like I said, last month, no one showed up. It's just difficult. I think that if I could do it again, or I'm going to continue doing it, but I'm going to try and find co-organizers, other people to take on the responsibilities of putting those meetings together and get new ideas.
We also have now joining us Miss Mandisa Thomas.
Thank you all very much. I'm filling in. Unfortunately, we couldn't find Mashariki this morning. So I'm going to step into this panel discussion, being a secular organizer. And I will say that actually there was an enthusiasm when Tina approached me. It was at the 2015 Sunday Assembly International Conference. Mm-hmm. And I was there speaking, and she enthusiastically approached me about starting an affiliate in the Charlotte area. And of course, I was, at the time I was, very, very excited because we were expanding the organization and we still are. But of course, as Tina said, you have people who come and go, they're initially excited and then they drop off. And I think at times, and I will say this as organizers, sometimes we do have a case of founder syndrome. That it becomes very difficult at times, that when we start an organization, we become very hesitant about who becomes involved, who we can trust to actually take on the responsibilities that we do. So sometimes it gets hard for us. We've put our trust in people who have broken it over the years. That isn't to say that we haven't cultivated new organizers, and that has been wonderful, but yes, it is, it has been full of excitements and letdowns. And I think any organizer in this movement can attest to this. But I really appreciate all of the organizers with Black non-believers. Tina, who's sitting next to me, we have some who are in the room right now, some who are watching virtually. And please know that your dedication to our organization is appreciated. And those who are organizing on a volunteer basis, or even if you are employed, your dedication and your work is appreciated by myself and others. And for those who are potentially stepping up, those who are looking to get involved, that is appreciated as well.
Awesome, ladies. Next question for both of you. What keeps you going when times are rough?
You want to start that, Tina?
Yeah, I'll start it. Well, I reach out to my fearless leader and I whine, and nobody came to my party. Nobody came to my meeting. But I also have, even though they can't always be at every meeting or every event, I do have my ride and dies members that will, as best as they can. If I ask them to do something, they will be there and they will do it, but they can't be at everything. Yeah, that's what keeps me going. And the fact that, being Charlotte is my baby. I started it, and I continue to raise it. And I think I even said to Mandisa one time when we were both commiserating, I just said, "No, Mandisa, nobody's going to love your baby like you do. This is that Black non-believers is your baby, and nobody's going to love it like you do." So it's just reaching out to other organizers and just trying to get new ideas, trying anything I can out there. Yeah,
I think what keeps me going is the fact that we are reaching a lot of people.
Yeah.
We have people who, when there are times where, I get the organizing, I get the anxiety before a meeting, right? I get anxiety before, I have to present at times. Heck, I even get anxiety before this event. But knowing that there are members, and we do have members who came to Chicago from the Atlanta area as well. We have people that are here from all over. Knowing that we have people who appreciate what we do. Like Tina said, whether they come all the time or they don't. And also the fact that there is now a body of work within the Black atheist demographic that focuses on history, that focuses on current activism, and the fact that we have cultivated good working relationships with our partnered organizations in this movement really does make a difference. When times get hard, and you feel like, you want to give up at times, which can be often. There are times where we feel like we're just doing things repeatedly. But one thing I've always said is repetition is good. Even if something doesn't work well the first time and you did it right, doing it again, people may catch it the second time around or the third time around. It may become a force of habit and a routine. And I think continuing to do that, knowing that there are people who come to us for the first time or come intermittently or even come regularly. We have established that community and we have established that presence to where people know who we are. They know that there is going to be something from Black non-believers annually or even regularly, monthly, something. And knowing that it is that people are, receiving it is very, very uplifting. And the fact that I know I'm not in this alone. I said, I do have organizers who are helping. We do have allies who are helping. So there are times where we feel like we're alone, but we aren't all the time. And we just have to remember that.
The next question is, what is the number one piece of advice you would give a new or potential organizer?
I would say don't give up. Try and establish relationships with people that you know that are your ride and dies. That's what I call them. The folks that are as dedicated to being, or whatever your atheist organization might be, your secular organization might be, that are dedicated to the cause. And really, for me, that's what's kept me going, just don't give up. Don't give up.
I would say at times, you're going to be there. Be prepared to be in it for the long haul. Be prepared to make sacrifices. Be prepared to come out of your pocket for things. Be prepared for this to get tedious and even boring at times. But it is what you make of it. It is what you make of it. And it is also what you make of the team building around you and the resources that are there to help, because that's what we are. I'm very, very big on meeting with my organizers regularly, always, and also being there for other organizers from other organizations, because for those of you who don't know, I think Tina also serves on other organizations. I volunteer with Recovering from Religion. I serve on the board for American Atheists, the American Humanist Association. So, and at times I'm like, oh gosh, why the fuck did I do all this? But it has been a good way to learn a lot more about nonprofit management, nonprofit governance, or things that we can take from other organizations that we hadn't considered. But then also sometimes even looking at other organizations and saying, hey, we've been down this road, right? Like we've handled this problem already. And so knowing that, there's always that nuance there. And even still, as a still volunteer organization, but coming from a management background, coming from a hospitality background, from a background that is very hands-on and managing and making sure things go well, I want everyone in this organization to learn from that. So if you are getting involved with any organization, whether it's Black non-believers or any other, be prepared to learn something that you hadn't learned before, but also don't be afraid to put even those skills you have to use, because it's called teamwork for a reason. So there may be things, there may be practices that are very, very useful to others that may not have been considered, especially in this movement that is still based around an intellectual, our intellectual capacity, but not necessarily our practical capacity. And that needs to change. I think it is changing, but, we can, and that burden of work shouldn't always be on the organizers, and certainly not always the people of color or the volunteers for that matter, because that does make a huge difference. But I will say that, be prepared. It's a lot. And if you may get the earful from me or from us that you weren't expecting, but there is a be prepared to be dedicated. And I didn't know when I got involved how much this would change my life or how much my life would be dedicated to it. But I will tell you, even no matter how hard it gets, I'm glad I did it. Because once again, for the people out there who need it, I don't expect for anyone to do even a fraction of what I do. But if you are serious, be prepared to step up and step up in a very, very meaningful way that will, because it's not just simply about our individual selves, it's also about the people and the community of folks who we are reaching and who do need us, because we found that they do. And that is very, very important. It isn't just simply about you when you get involved. It truly is about other people. And keeping that in mind is always going to be important.
Thank you, ladies. I have another bonus question for you before
Okay.
we move on to Q&A. Bonus question is, do you have any other tidbits or tips, just generally in your line of work and being an organizer, that you would like anybody out there listening to know?
Don't take things personally. If nobody showed up to your meeting, don't take it personally. Just pick up the pieces and just move on to the next thing.
Yeah, I echo that. And that's even something that I have to do. That's something that we have to keep in mind as organizers, that it isn't personal. Life happens for people. But I also say, incorporate the things you like into your activities. There's nothing wrong with that, because for many of us, the work-life balance does become a little bit difficult at times. We have to remember that we are a community of people who like to do different things. And this is how we build community, incorporating new things and the things that we like into everyday activities. Everyday people don't own it. The religious community certainly does not own, they don't own fellowship. They don't have the monopoly on it. So take some of the things that you like, some of the things that you're interested in, and perhaps even you can ask your members, but then sometimes just post it. Sometimes just don't be afraid to say, there will be times where you will just say, I'm going to do what I want to do. And there are, you can either come or you don't. So, just striking that balance there of incorporating what you do into, and there's also there are, not, I wouldn't say limitless, but there are many possibilities. There are many options that we have to continue to build community. There isn't just one way to do it. So be prepared to expand your mind, be prepared to expand even your, just your skill set. That is going to be very, very important, to be flexible. And also encourage that for your members and the people who are, you're engaging with. And when there are other organizations that come with suggestions, that's the type of flexibility that they're going to need to consider as well.
I'd like to add to that. Do something that you like, because there are plenty of times when, there have been suggestions like, we're in the South. At one time, several of our members said, we want to go to the range and shoot our guns. I'm not a gun person, but I said, well, okay. 15, 16 people showed up, all with their own guns. Some members provided guns for everybody else. And it was a big deal. I would have never, ever thought that something like that would be popular in Black non-believers, but in Charlotte it is. But then another time I remember somebody suggesting, it's escape room. We want to do escape room. I'm like, I don't know, but okay. The day before the event, nobody had signed up and I had to cancel it. And from then on, I just decided, if we're going to have a meeting or something, some kind of event like that, it's going to be something that I want to do, whether anybody shows up or not.
Yes. For example, like I love bowling. That is a very popular, outing in the Atlanta area. So whenever we do it, we never fail to have at least about 5, 6 people show up. And I think a good thing to remember is, especially for the smaller organizations, 5 to 6 people is still a good number.
Yeah.
It still shows that there are enough people, that there are people out there who thought it was important enough to come to engage with others. And I know sometimes, we do love, quantity and more people showing up, but in my book, quality trumps quantity.
Yeah.
So sometimes less is more. And that also gives a good opportunity for you to really get to know your members.
Mhm.
I'm big on knowing all of our members by name, and knowing what they're into, not to get all in their business, and not in a way to try to shame or embarrass, like many religious communities do, but because we're also building those bonds, and they do become friendships. And there are things that, as organizers, we do keep confidential to our members, to my fellow organizers. We vent sometimes. And so when we are in these settings, it builds that bond and that trust with our members to know that, for one, that we will always be there. And, the fun stuff that we like to do, even if it wasn't something that they considered before, it's just fun. You don't have to be a serious bowler. You can just come and have a good time. You can throw all the gutter balls you want. So I think it's, that is something to keep in mind. Yes, do what you like. Incorporate some of the activities that you like to do.
Thank you, ladies. I'd like to open it up for Q&A to anyone who may have any questions for our awesome, amazing speakers. Feel free to.
Yeah, I got here. We have talked about this already, but I'll be curious what for each of you, what you feel is the most important personal attribute or skill, or it's more than one, 2 or 3 that could be a good organizer.
Oh, that's a good question. We're going to repeat that for the online audience. And if you have any questions, if you're on Zoom, please type them into the chat. The question is, what are some of the most important attributes or skills that are needed in order to be a good organizer? Tina, do you want to take that one, or should I?
You can take that one.
Okay, so for me, here are a few skills that I tend to take very, very seriously. Punctuality is first and foremost. In order to be an organizer in Black non-believers and work with me, you have to know that I show up on time to everything. And if I'm not there on time, I will let you know. So that also leads to another attribute or skill, which is communication, good communication. So first, being, showing up on time, being punctual, being there, or, and then if you are not going to be there on time, or if you can't make it, please let, your members or your fellow organizers know. Attention to detail is also another important one. You have to consider things from all angles. You have to consider what may be, not just how things look from your point of view, but also how this may look from the point of your members, from the point of, a community. You have to have a community-based mindset. Certainly I do like personable people. I like people who are able to engage socially. They're not just going to, organize a group and then not talk to members. They're also going to know how to answer questions timely. That rolls back into it. But, because we are, because we do engage directly with members and we are building community, you have to know how to talk to people, not talk at people, talk to them. There's a difference. And not just simply, from this standpoint of being so cerebral, or if you will, you have to know how to be down to earth and just talk to folks.
Have fun.
Yeah, have fun with it. Know how to be fun, know how to have fun. But yes, show up on time, show up before time. I think organizers should be, show up before time, be prepared to get there early, be there first and leave last. And sometimes that is a hard concept for people. It is, and it's understandably so because it's a lot of work. But when you get involved, I said, even if you're just doing something once a month, having that dedication of being there on or before time, making sure you're communicating with your members, and also knowing how to again, just talking to folks, because you'd be surprised where that leads. You never know where that leads, and how to cultivate new organizers just by doing that. Okay, so the question is, what would we say is the biggest misconception or stereotype about being an organizer?
At least to me, I think a lot of members of any organization see the lead organizer as mom or dad, that they're going to take care of us, or I'm not going to show up and I'm not going to call, and because it's mom, she'll understand. It's dad, he'll understand. Yeah, I think there's a misconception that we don't have any feelings, or that our time is not valuable.
Yeah, I would echo that sentiment. And there was a question about who asked the questions. The first question was asked by Joe Stevenson, if you're okay with being identified, about what are the good qualities of being an organizer. And the second question was asked by Barbara Alvarez. And I would echo that sentiment. I think that many people tend to think that, that we don't get disappointed at times, that we're not these human beings, that we don't have feelings, that we're not allowed to get upset about shit. Like, if you say you're gonna be somewhere, or you say you're going to take on this task and you don't do it, we have every right to be upset about that. You don't have the right to just let us down and everything just be okay. We're not super women. We're not super people. But I think what was said in Tiffany's talk about being too Black, being too strong at times. And I think this goes for organizers of all stripes. That certainly does come into play. Or that I think also I think another misconception or stereotype is that, we just have, we have unlimited resources, which we don't. Many of us are, before I resigned from my full-time position 3 years, almost 4 years ago now, I was working full-time just like everybody else. So, and now I'm at a point where, now this is my full-time work and it needs to be supported. And I don't have, we can't waste much. We just can't. So that tends to be a huge misconception, along with what Tina said, that, and then also too, that we're just supposed to always be the bigger person about everything, that we're always supposed to be on and be professional at all times. And that, this is just what we do. This is what you did. You step into this role. So this is what you get. Yeah, we understand that, but it doesn't always have to be the case. We're still human beings. So we have, we have the right to, if there is something that is bothering us, that's not to say that we're abusing people, because we don't want to do that. And there is an expectation that we do handle things in a more professional manner than everyone else. But hey, we have our moments.
I had walked away for a second to try to check the chat for questions. I can pull that up as well. If there's any questions from our Zoom viewers. Oh,
Yeah.
go ahead.
So before you answer that, Tina, the question was asked by Hoan with the Secular Coalition for America. So the question is, how do we deal with conflict within our organizations? How do we deal with member conflicts? Members who may criticize organizers or any fires that we may have to put out. How do we handle those? Tina, you can answer that.
Yeah. I've never had anybody criticize me directly or even indirectly. I've never heard anything. So if they're talking about me, I don't know about it. However, I know there have been conflicts within the group. And it's, I guess I'll use that parable of Solomon and the two mothers. I have to decide, like, not so much who's right and who's wrong. But yeah, I have had to just decide, okay, this one's got to go. They're just out of line. And I just kicked them out of the group. Generation gap. I mean, I'm the oldest one in our group right now. I have had members that were college age, and I would say that most of my members are Generation X and older millennials. There's just not much I can do about the generation gap. We try to do things that are very specific for Black culture. So we'll have cookouts and we'll have spades tournaments, we'll have reading groups, that kind of thing. But I don't know what the college age kids do. I don't know what they do.
Well, Tina, you were in college once, weren't you?
Yes.
Changed.
Once. 100 years ago.
So the thing starting an organization like Black Nonbelievers, I have not been without conflict before. So what I try to do because we are a community that values evidence-based practices and evidence-based principles, sometimes if there is a conflict, we do try to ask, have you considered information on this? Or have you considered, and we also have to keep in mind that we are still dealing with a lot of people who, even though they've left religion, they still may be dealing with a religious mentality, or they still may be incorporating that. So trying to help people, not gaslighting them, but to try and sometimes we treat it like we would like a work conflict. We try to find out what happened first, and then try to find, because there are people who, when they're trying to tell their side of the story, they may not be as honest. So trying to get to the root of the problem is a good thing, is a good way to start. But then when it comes to criticism, a good thing we like to ask is, well, hey, have you considered getting more involved? Have you considered, have you considered what this may cost or what has to be done? And usually the answer is no, because they haven't thought about it, right? So always trying to ask those questions to get to the root of the why has always been good. I get shots fired at me quite a bit. Because as Tina and the other organizers within BNO, especially in the online spaces, is that we also refer to the established rules and practices of our groups and our organizations. So we do refer to those, and if people continuously violate them, then yeah, they got to go. And the more offending party of the two, and especially if they are repeat offenders, yeah, you got to go. You can try that with someone else, or you can try that in another space, but you're not going to do that here. And I know some of the folks here are in our Facebook group. They can attest to this. So it really is. And it's not that, sometimes we become a little sensitive to people who want to suggest things all the time and not do it. But then, once you ask them to step up, that usually tends to weed them out. Sometimes you can ignore certain criticisms because it's like, well, you're not doing what I do. And so, if I know you're not going to step up to the plate, I can only take you but so seriously. But when there are some conflicts that may resolve themselves, we do try to refrain from ad hominems and people name calling. We regulate that quickly, very, very quickly, because it shouldn't have to devolve into that. And anyone who is an organizer should know how to should have some experience with conflict management. You cannot let it fester because it will impact your group. It will impact your organization. And also there are some things you have to take a hard stance on. Some things are going to be, hey, we explained it. This is what it's going to be. If you don't like it, then too bad. They can either stay or they can go. So, it's an ongoing process. There are some things that we would love to be resolved overnight. That isn't always going to happen. Hopefully once, if there is let's say if there's an argument between members, hopefully it's just in that moment. Once tempers settle down, then hopefully, we can move forward from there. But always trying to incorporate a moving forward mentality as well. Always helps. So I know I said a mouthful. That was a lot, but
I got something else to add. One thing that I do is that I will check in on my members. People that used to come all of the time will suddenly drop off. And I'll check in. How are you doing? What's up? What's happened? I haven't seen you. Sometimes, there's just circumstances. Maybe it's work, maybe it's for health reasons or taking care of family. But this is kind of funny, but I've had a few women members tell me, no men. Hey, no men. You don't have any men. I said, well, there's not much I can do about that. However, I remember I had a Zoom meeting we did a Valentine's Day singles Zoom meeting. All these guys showed up and then no women. And then of course, the next meeting, those guys didn't show up again. And I will say very honestly, I know for a fact that there are a lot of members looking for a partner, a romantic partner within the group. And if they don't see them, they kind of drop away. Sometimes I feel like maybe I should only have married members. But I say that in jest, but yeah, check in. I would say definitely check in on your members. At least let them know that you care about them, that you've thought about them. Yeah.
Yeah, and that goes back to the religious mentality that I mentioned earlier, is that people expect overnight solutions. The same way you maintain relationships when you were religious is the same way or similar way that you maintain relationships when you're non-religious. The difference now is that some of the things that you used to do are not going to fly anymore. So keeping that in mind. But there is a question from Debbie Goddard, who is from American Atheists, who is in the online and Zoom chat. So the question is, for a new local group, what might they think success could look like in 5 to 10 years aspirationally? Like if someone were to start a being group today and it could be described as very, very successful 5 years later, what does that group look like and do? You want me to answer that, Tina, or you want to answer that?
Yeah, aspirationally, that would be
Okay, so aspirationally, so ideally what that would look like is it's a local affiliate that is continuously hosting meetings. And when I say continuously, I say once a month. What that also looks like is good collaborations with other groups and other organizations. because that is also how you attract new and potential members. Also how you are represented or how you are featured also in the public eye, because we are an organization that has attracted media attention and people to speak on behalf of atheism and the non-religious community within our own community, what those representatives look like, and also the programs that we can establish, how we continue to cultivate and encourage our member base to support the organization and how we get them involved. And that is always through consistency. That is always through being there, especially when others aren't, but also the teamwork. We go back to teamwork and what that looks like for an affiliate and how well we are all working together. How often do we check in with our fellow organizers? How often are we bouncing off ideas and working together? How often do you show up for the national events? How often are you stepping in and doing what needs to be done? So that makes a difference, 5 to 10 years from now, when you're starting a group, how you continue to develop those relationships and also how you continue to work in, how you continue to work in those spaces and how well you work with other people really does make a difference. Did you have anything to add, Tina?
I don't have anything to add.
Okay.
We have a question in the back.
Okay, so the question is from Chris Cameron, author of Black Freethinkers, who's in the audience with us. The question is, often in American culture, atheism is seen as being immoral and being devoid of any type of humanistic values. So how do we incorporate our atheism into like social justice and into our activism? Tina, you want to take that?
Yeah. So for me, I do the reproductive justice work and the abolition work because it involves Black people, right? I do reproductive work because I wasn't planning to get into that work because I thought it was all a bunch of crazy ass white people out in front of the clinic, which is true. But when I went to the clinic, I saw that they were shaming and humiliating and terrorizing Black women or people who were pregnant, Black people who were pregnant specifically. Right, most of the people that would show up at the clinic, about 75% were Black people. And it was these white people that were attacking them. And that's how I got involved, because if it were just all white people, then it's just white people's business. I don't have anything to do with it. That's y'all's issue. But when I saw the attacks on Black women, then it became my issue. Whether it didn't matter what they believed in. And initially when I would go out and do that work, I would wear my Black non-believer shirt, but then I saw that it kind of detracted from the real reason of why I was there, and that was to protect Black women, because they would see the Black non-believer shirt and they would kind of like shrink away. So I just decided I'd wear a clinic defender shirt, come out as an atheist, but I don't have to tell anybody I'm an atheist. I'm out there to protect Black women and to help them get their abortions, their services. Same thing with abolition work. It is the mass incarceration of Black people. And that's my business. That is my business. Again, if it was white people, incarcerating white people, other white people, and that's all it was, I'd probably stay out of it because it's not my business.
So I take a slightly different approach to that because I do think that while we do have very specific focuses, if we are to maintain allies, that we definitely want them to know what our issues are. And we want them to care about them as well. And I think we should reciprocate that and do the same. However, my atheism and my humanism is informed by the fact that there are Black folks who don't have that adequate health care, that they are being mass incarcerated, and that religion has done a very bad job. They've done a very, very bad job on our, or protecting our communities. In some ways, they have been there as a support, but ultimately to be the institution that it has fucked up. And we have every right to talk about that. We have every right to tell people that this is this is just one reason why it doesn't appeal to me, and why these human rights issues inform my non-belief. And if you ask me, I'm not going to hide it, or I don't think we should hide it anymore, because I think our actions can speak louder. And we take a very education-based approach, or an evidence-based approach. And it's not that we have to beat everyone over the head with it, but there is evidence to support that, religion, Christianity in particular, has been at the root of white supremacy, which has implemented all of these things that have worked against Black folks. And we have every right to speak on that. And we have every right to get involved simply because we care about people. I often find that when some of us express our non-belief, people are like, oh, there's that misconception. That wasn't what I was expecting about atheists, and I contend that there is a time and a place for it. However, if we want this privilege to end, it is important for us to speak up when we can, especially when you step up to organize.
Yeah. Sometimes though, the atheism can distract from the work you're trying to do though. So I pick and choose. I pick and choose where I decide that I'm going to wear my BN shirt. It's not that because I'm ashamed I'm an atheist. That's for sure. But I have to weigh out what is going to be best for the goal that I'm trying to at least work towards.
So we have one final question from Margie with the American Humanist Association. The question is, how do we inspire groups that organize and meet virtually across the country? And how do we make up for the loss of the in-person connection?
I don't know. How do we?
So I've noticed that there have been some groups that have organized virtual game nights. There may be virtual trivia. I know that the Sunday Assembly still hosts the virtual gatherings with like the music and the motivational readings and the guest speakers. So I think that some of the things that we have done in person can be replicated, even if they aren't, even if it is virtual. I know that it is best when we do things in person, but there are still ways that we can connect with each other by doing those things. It's a transition for all of us, and it's just about reimagining, doing these things. If there are other events that might be hybrid or virtual that don't necessarily have anything to do with secularism, it could just be something fun. You can schedule it around that, even if it's virtual. So again, that diversity in activity is going to be important. And if there is someone who suggests a particular activity, then, we can take a look into it. And it's important to, take a look and incorporate that.
It's difficult.
Yeah.
It is very difficult. And once we started the Zoom meetings, we were having cocktail nights. Everybody bring your cocktail and let's talk and chat. I did like I said, the Valentine's Day dating thing. And then I just ran out of ideas and nobody was giving me any other ideas. So it's tough. It's tough. I don't have an answer for that. Yeah.
All right. That's it. We're good.
Awesome. So now we are in our conclusion time. Are there any last words, thoughts?
Thank you all once again for coming to this conference, both in person and virtual. We hope you are enjoying the conversation. You got some good feedback from the chat, and please feel free to ask any questions that you may have after this talk. And also feel free to email any of us or get in touch with us if you have additional questions.
Thank you.